With the warm weather, the water is starting to warm up on the flats and bays, and this means that the trout and the reds are going to move up shallow. In freshwater, the bass and crappie are going to start to move to the deeper water pattern. If you want to know more, then just stay right here because it's time for the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Hello and welcome back to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, starting the weekend off with today being Cinco de Mayo. And honestly, Rick, I don't know what better way to celebrate than with fresh caught fish tacos and a little Jose Cuervo margaritas. What about you?
Oh, it sounds like a perfect plan if you're asking me, Brie, but you know what? We've got a lot of reports to get to, plus Dave at the workbench, so let's just roll right on.
Yes, well, before we hear how we're keeping the party going, in our first region, let's say hi to Dave at the workbench, where it's always a party. Hola, Dave.
How you doing?
We're good. What
A
you
lot
doing
of you
over
as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about Matt Reed's secrets to fishing the chatterbait, the square bill, and the spinnerbait.
All right.
Trying to catch some bass.
Trying to catch some big bass. All right, let's start our Cinco de Mayo fishing fiesta in the Fish Bites Upper Coast region with Captain Carl Weston. Talk to us about that early morning bite, Carl.
Well, hey, here in the Upper Coast, it's starting to look and feel a lot like summer finally. That water temp has hit 74 over in Sabine Lake and in Bolivar. So the early morning bite seems to be the best time to fish right now. Like we talked about in the past week, the wind has been crazy, but it's not picking up that early. It picks up more towards noon. So fishing the points and the drop-offs along the rivers leading to the bays has been really good in the morning, like we said. Our slot reds have picked up as well in the cuts and inside the jetties and on those protected shorelines. Anglers have been free-lining live shrimp against the rock and pitching hard plastics like that Chopo 90 we talked about in bone. It's been doing really well. So we've got a picture of a trout here today, I believe.
Yep,
So,
that's trout and redfish there, bud.
Let's take a look. A redfish. I'm sorry, I'm all messed up. Like I'm drinking already. So let's go over and take a look at the trout bite, guys. I'm sorry. Over at Texaco Island Basin has been a really good place to start this week for trout. We've been fishing live shrimp or croaker on a popping cork. That's been our live bait choice of the week, and actually all spring that's been really good. Plastics also, again, in the light color, like white or glow. We've had a good bite on the fish bites in the power lime color. The Fight Club Lights Out has been lights out on a 1/4 ounce jig head as well. And if you're out early in the morning, don't forget to look for those birds. This is going to be the sign with the wind blowing. The birds and the oil slicks is going to be your one good giveaway of where these fish are feeding. We've got a picture, I believe. I'm sorry, my paperwork today, you have to excuse me. I don't have my pictures listed. So we're going to move offshore to Wahoo. Let's talk a little bit about our weather windows. They've been short, they've been small, but please don't miss them this spring because when we've got offshore, the fishing has been awesome. The fish are here, they're hungry. They are headed a little bit south, but the rock piles in the 160 to 250 foot range are still holding really good bait and really big fish. Now, as always, when fishing for Wahoo, just like on the inshore, the early morning bite has been the best, and the late evening bite always produces the most fish. Finding structure and current breaks in these areas will be your target. And if you're lucky enough to have the Sirius XM fishing mapping, you're going to be able to game plan your trip the night before, which is huge. You can look for current breaks, temperature breaks, upwellings, look for weed lines, mark the coordinates down. You'll have this at your fingertips, and this means more time on the fish, Rick. And we have a picture of a wahoo today.
All right. Yeah, man, that's a beautiful fish, dude. All right, tell us about the cobias, and you do have a picture of the cobias just in case you don't have your paperwork figured out. Go ahead, tell us about...
As you're heading offshore this week in this beautiful weather, start keeping your eyes peeled for ling. It's that time of year, guys. When you clear the jetties and hit your first buoys, markers, stop and see if our old friendly neighborhood ling are hanging out. They're always waiting for a free meal. And we always keep a pitch rod handy with a swim bait or a bucktail jig on it. What I have tried recently, which is really neat, is the new R&R. They have that line through 5.5-inch swim bait. That thing is ling candy. It comes in 3 or 4 different sizes. With the easy replacement plastic tail, it is awesome. It's quick, on and off. It's a great bait. We also keep a small pen spinning combo, I do, in the rack right there, with about 3 foot of 50-pound diamond leader and a 6-aught trocar live bait hook. You know, if those guys are picky and you've got a little piggy perch, little finger mullet, they can't leave them alone. And we have Mario with a ling here today.
Man, Mario's like a weekly visitor to the Texas Insider Fishing Report, isn't he, Carl?
He will not stay off the boat or off the fish, Rick.
All right. Well, that's what he does. He does what he does that when we go to Guatemala if he's not too hungover. All right, bud. We'll go ahead and take a look at the R&R tackle hotspots from the Upper Coast region. Carl says, in short, the redfish fish around Texaco Island Basin. Throw the easy shrimp in the power line or on a 1/4-ounce jig head, and then offshore chasing the ling and fishing the navigational buoys near the channel edges rigged with an R&R line through 5-inch swim bait.
Why you gotta call Mario out like that?
Oh man, Mario needs to be called out every single time. Trust me, he is the one who just keeps me constantly chasing him all the time to make sure he isn't going to jail in a third world country. It's not going to be pretty. That's
sure
my boy.
Not that bad. All right.
I love him. I love him. He's the best because he's crazy.
Very endearing. Okay,
Yes.
now we're seeing what our weekend in the lower fresh region is looking like on Choke Canyon, Somerville, and Falcon Lake with Matt Reed. Give us the 411, Matt.
All right, let's roll. We're going to start out with the largemouth bass down in my region. Mike Bates has sent me a report from Choke Canyon. Bass are pretty much completely through spawning. There's just a few scattered ones left. They've moved out to their post-spawn areas. They're either around the edges of the hydrilla that has begun to top out, or they're on the offshore structure. Around the hydrilla, moving baits such as topwater, chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, and lipless crankbaits are working great in the morning. After that, you want to throw a Texas rig out on the edges. On the offshore areas, Texas rig, big crankbaits, and Carolina rigs are what's working best. He's commonly having 50 to 60 fish days right now, with size up to an occasional 9 or 10 pounder. The wind has been crazy lately, so be sure and watch your weather. And that's going on everywhere, it seems like. So keep your eye to the weatherman. Sometimes he's actually right. Moving on down to Falcon. The bass are cooperating extremely well. The best bite is still rock related. Early in the morning, concentrate on the shallow rock with square bills and swim baits. There's a little bit of shad spawn left. Those fish up shallow, that's what they're targeting. As the day rolls on, move out to that 10 to 15 foot range with Texas rigs, Carolina rigs, and a bigger crankbait, and keep that bite rolling along. Fishing's just been phenomenal. Tons of big fish are showing up. Greg Boyd sent me a report from Somerville. Shad spawn still happening there, so there's a lot of largemouth shallow. They're around the rocks and the sandy banks. Look for the birds standing on the shores. That's a great key to where the shad spawn's going on. Spinnerbaits and shallow cranks has been the best way to catch those fish. Got a picture there, my buddy Mike Bates with one of a big old Choke Canyon fish. He's been having a blast there. His clients have caught tons of big fish as well as him.
What else you got for us, Matt?
Moving on down, and we've got some crappie we're going to talk about. The Falcon Lake crappie, they're done spawning, and they've headed back out to the main lake, and they're stacking up in the brush piles. They're in that 12 to 20 foot range. You get you an 1/8-ounce jig head with a red and chartreuse or June bug chartreuse plastic tail. Really easy limits to be caught that way to fill up your freezer and your belly. Got reports on some catfish. Ram Reyes sent me a report from Falcon, a catfish. He's catching them both shallow and deep right now. The keeper size and the big cats are all mixed in. Cut baits working best for the blues and channel cat. Shad, carp, tilapia work great for that. If you want to target a flathead, put a live bait on there, either a big gizzard shad or tilapia, and you might catch you a big flathead. Choke Canyon, the blue cat and channel cat are biting really well on dough bait. They're on the outside edges of the hydrilla. Limits of keeper-sized blues and channels are real common there right now. That catfish in that picture, that's Ram himself with a big old flat head that fell prey to a live tilapia. So those big catfish are always, they pull on your string now.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say they
will.
do.
Next target, alligator gar. You know, Falcon has probably the biggest population of alligator gar of any fishery in the country. They're shallow and surfacing right now, which is great for the bow fishing. You know, they do that a lot on certain areas. Target them either in the day when they come up to surface or at night with lights. Also, the rod and reel gar fishing is really picked up with the water getting warm. Big chunks of cut carp or tilapia are best. These giants are just amazing, you know, and they grow extremely fast. One of those 100-pound female fish may not be but 6 years old.
Wow.
You know, and some of them get much bigger than that. So it's just crazy. That's a picture of one they've got on a rod and reel there, pulled up beside the boat. When you look over the side of the boat at one like that, that's when you really wonder, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, that's
Those
exactly.
things are just giants. So it's a blast. It's like fishing offshore, basically, except you're in a freshwater lake.
That's exactly right. Great report this week, bud. Thank you so much. It's time for the Fiber Tech hotspots from the lower fresh region. He says the Falcon Lake crappie are stacked up in the bushes piles. 20 to 12 feet of water is the key depth. Drop an 1/8 ounce jig head with chartreuse or maybe June bug and chartreuse plastic to catch your fill of a limit.
Did you say chartreuse?
Chartreuse ain't no use if it ain't chartreuse.
It's chartreuse. All right, we're
That's
celebrating.
what we're talking about, guys.
We are celebrating into the Star TRON Middle Fresh region next, but first, Dave is showing us some tricks for rigs and techniques at the workbench. Dave,
chartreuse
let's
tricks.
see what you got.
As well, we got some chartreuse.
Yeah, I see a lot of chartreuse colors.
There's a
over
lot of
there.
them over here.
The
Chartreuse
margarita
and
mix
white.
is looking good.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back.
Cinco Drinko.
Single day drink.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Fenwick. Feel everything. Bahio Sunglasses. Blue light blocking. Radically clear lenses. GARMIN. Plot your paradise. FiberTex. Leaders in fiberglass fabrication and repair. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. And SKEETER Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
So Dave, we're here at the workbench, and you know, rigs and techniques is something we talk about every single week.
Yes.
And, you know, when we talked earlier in the week, we always communicate as to what we're going to talk about. But what was really, I thought, would be a cool topic this week would be not fishing the topwater, like frogs and walk the dog baits, or not fishing Carolina rigs, but to fish somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So I know you've put that together for us tonight, so let's get into it.
I called up Matt Reed, you know, the fellow that was just on there and talking a little bit some of these same things, and he went through his 3 favorite baits to throw during this shad spawn, you know, that worked that intermediate kind of level. And comes to find out it's a chatterbait, square bill crankbait, and the spinnerbait. And you know, they all work and do different little things. You know, the chatterbait there is an inline, kind of like a spinnerbait, but it, you know, gives off a lot of vibration. It's more of an open water bait. It hangs up a lot more than a spinnerbait would, so you don't want to be throwing that into the cover. You know, if you want to fish that around the edges of the hydrilla, if you know where the edge is real good, because if you start to drag that through the hydrilla, it's going to get hung up quick.
Right.
You know, it's not something that you want to throw into real heavy cover. And you know, you use a 3/8 1/2 ounce, just like a spinnerbait size, and you know, cast that out and retrieve it back. You know, once you throw it out and once you start to wind, as soon as it starts to do that, go ahead and just keep that steady. Yeah,
the lateral line of the fish will do it for you.
Correct. You don't have to do a whole bunch of jerking and nothing. Just let that, just roll it, and he'll eat it. Now,
bigger blade, make it go deeper, Dave?
Oh, it'll make it, definitely makes a lot more vibrations. The cool thing about both spinner baits and chatter baits is that you can vary the depth that you fish them by just speeding up or slowing down.
Right.
And the blades do have a little bit to do with that, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the spinner baits right here. We're going to do the spinner baits next. And the spinner baits, they're great in all kinds of cover. You can throw that into lily pads, hydrilla, even wood, and burn that through there, and it won't hang up. And the bigger the blade, it allows you to control the depth as well. You can put big round blades on there. A round blade is going to cause a lot more resistance and hang higher in the water than these willow blades here.
Right.
A willow blade is not going to do that as well as a round blade. And then they even have the teardrop blade too. So you can get all different kinds, one blade or two blades, and just again throw that thing out and work it right back to you. He likes to use the chartreuse and white. He really likes those colors because they're matching up the shad. And again, 3/8 ounce and a 1/2 ounce, and up and down with the retrieve. You can burn it across the surface, or you can let that thing hang down mid water column and just
here's the
move
teardrop blade that you're talking about.
Right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about square bills, bub.
Well, the square bills, they're great for wood and rocks. If you're fishing around wood and rocks, 5 feet of water or less, it's a great bait for that because it really tears, has a really tight wiggle and vibration, and when it bounces off a piece of rock or a wood and it stalls there for a second, wham! That's when you get that reaction bite.
Right.
And that's what those are great for.
These are the Berkeley square bulls.
Right. And Matt really likes to have, he says, why would it eat mine against all the other ones and all these shad, So what he likes to do is he likes to put a little color. He likes to have a little color on his square bills. He likes to put some chartreuse again, something that'll make it stand out, different from all the other ones that are down there. So he likes to do that. And he uses the crawdad colors during the pre-spawn. Everything's already spawned out by now. But for the pre-spawn in the wintertime, that crawdad bouncing off the bottom and bouncing off the rocks, that's what they like to eat then. So for the trailers, he likes to use the pearl white grubs for the spinner baits. For the chatter baits, he likes to use a swim bait, like a paddle tail.
Right.
It's a little bit smaller. And it adds bulk, and it adds action.
So understand this, guys. This is really critical. Offshore, inshore, bass, whatever. Make sure when you put your trailer on, always have the paddle tail facing down.
Right.
And the reason why is as this thing goes through the water, if it's up here, the hook impedes as well as all the skirt impedes with the amount of water that it catches. When it's falling, this is not being interrupted by anything.
Right, it's out in the open.
You'll catch more fish with the curly tail part down. Good job, Dave. All right, Bree, speaking of curly tail, look at that curly hair we got this week.
Curly hair, curly tail down. Got it.
I got
All
it.
right, in the Star Tron Middle Fresh region, Sam Rayburn is the star of the show. So let's get with Matt Loescher and see what kind of bite we're in for this weekend. Go for it, Matt.
All right, Bree. Yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about Sam Rayburn again this week because I'm just getting a lot of great reports from there right now, and I want to keep everybody filled in on what's happening. So the water temperature over there at Rayburn is about 67 to 72 degrees. There is a shallow and a deep bite going on there right now, and they're both good for size and for numbers. Just depending on kind of what area you're in, you can make that happen. On lakes like Rayburn, there's almost always a shallow and a deep bite to be had because there's so many good cover options for the fish, both deep and shallow. But most of the time, one or the other is better for numbers and one or the other is better for size. But right now, you can literally find both, whether you're deep or shallow. So as a fisherman, it's just an awesome deal to be on Sam Rayburn right now because you can fish whichever way you have the most confidence in and have a great day. You can be up shallow, and if you are up shallow, you're going to want to be fishing soft plastics to the cypress trees and the grass. That's really hard to beat for consistency. Then topwater baits like frogs and poppers are a good option as well. You got shad spawning and bluegill starting to spawn now. And that bluegill spawn is a big deal. That's kind of where those big fish come in my opinion. Those big bass like to seek out those bigger meals, and they like those little bluegills, man. They're a bigger meal for them, and so it's worth them hanging around the shallows for them. So mimicking those bluegills is a great way to catch the big ones. And then for the deeper bite, I like a crankbait, kind of using that as a search tool. And then once I find some fish, I'm going to focus on Carolina rigs and jigs as well for really pumping up the numbers once you get a school located. So you're going to want to look for those offshore fish out on the points and the ledges that are leading out of the spawning areas in about 10 to 20 foot of water. And as always, look for the largest concentrations of bait in those types of areas when you're searching for fish. That bait could be shad or it could be bluegill, so keep an eye out for both on that. And I've got a photo here for you of my tournament partner there, Mr. Harold Allen, with a 7-pounder that he caught on Sam Rayburn this past week. Real pretty post-spawn fish there. You can tell they're done spawning, they're skinny, but they're feeding and they're trying to bulk back up. So we want to take advantage of that.
That's right. All right, what else you got for us?
So speaking of the 7-pounders, the Sealy Big Bass Splash was held at Sam Rayburn back on April 22nd through the 24th. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to get all this info on my last report with the results last week, but I've got it now, and let me tell you, it doesn't disappoint. So, more reason for you guys to go to Rayburn. It took at least a 7-pound bass or larger to win every single hour of the Sealy Big Bass Splash event. That's 3 days of fishing with 7 hourly weigh-ins each day, all over 7 pounds to win. That's a lot of big bass.
Wow,
and Rayburn's just putting them out right now.
That's
So,
21
overall,
7-pounders.
Was Ralph Dupuy. I apologize if I butchered that last name, Ralph, but he had an 11.1 pounder, so great big giant fish there. Congrats to him on that. Bob Sealy and his crew, they put on an incredible event. Everywhere they go, prizes are outstanding. So if you've never fished a Big Bass Splash, you're missing out. Their next event is going to be on May 20th through the 22nd over here at Toledo Bend, so y'all come get in on that.
Woo.
Now, as far as what's going on here at Toledo Bend, it's been good over here as well. The numbers aren't quite as high here as they are at Rayburn, but the average size of the bass being caught this year is really good. The biologists say we have a really strong age class of fish maturing through the lake right now, so I'm excited to see what's weighed in at that Big Bass Splash. The best way to catch them lately has been on flat points in about 8 to 15 foot of water where they're staging back out toward their summer haunt. There's still a shallow bite here too, and the shad spawn is still happening, so you can look for some good fish up shallow early in the morning at first light, and then you can look for some shallow grass for that action to be happening. White frogs and swim baits like the Little Boss are good for that. Now I'm going to stop there on the bass report for sake of time, jump over to the crappie real quick. Here at Toledo Bend, they're really settling into their early summertime pattern, and they're beginning to suspend in that deeper water, about 15 to 30 foot. And they're hungry. They're biting like crazy on those panfish assassin jigs. So try them around the deeper timber, and they'll jump all over it. At Rayburn, basically the same pattern, but I am hearing that there's still quite a few crappie being caught shallower at Rayburn. There's still more of them spawning. So once again, just like a bass, you got a deep and a shallow going over there. But it's all good, and they're all feeding, so that's the good news. And I'm going to end it with a photo this week of 4 guys I had crappie fishing here at Toledo with a table full of crappie we caught.
All right, thank you so much, dude. You did a great job. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Rodan Marine hotspots from the Middle Fresh region. Matt says that Sam Rayburn, the bass are on fire, deep and shallow. Biting soft plastics is going to work the best. At Toledo Bend, it's more of the same with bass feeding on shad and bluegill shallow and then out on the points in 10 to 20 feet of water. And don't forget those crappie are on fire in Toledo Bend at 15 to 30 feet, biting jigs in Minos.
All right, we're casting into the lower coast and upper fresh regions next on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. So grab a refill or another taco, and we'll be back with your reports. And remember to keep up with everything fishing in Texas. Make sure to head on over to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and to see new fishing adventures along with reports, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy. We'll see you soon.
There it is.
That is a pretty looking chartreuse table. Woo!
Look at all that color, boy.
Can we have it?
Yes,
We'll
you
be
can
back.
have it.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Island Lures, Tournament Tackle. Rodan, set it, forget it, catch more fish. Sirius XM Marine, weather, fish mapping, entertainment. Shallow Sport, Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. And Penn, let the battle begin.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about using dual poles. Now guys, I love the fact that with dual poles, I can create total boat control. Now when I approach a dock, or if I approach a point or an oyster bar, everything is in the angle of my cast in most fishing conditions. So what I try to do is understand exactly the presentation that I want to make with my lure and set the boat up by so doing that. So what ends up happening is we can approach a dock, we can approach that oyster bar, and I'm going to put the boat so that I can compensate for the wind as well as the current. And dual poles allow me to do that. Most of the time, if you have a single pole, you're always going to drift down current or even downwind, or the wind might blow you across the current. So you don't have the total control that you have with duals. So keep that in mind, that with duals, you're gonna have the total boat control, and that's today's Power Pole tip of the week. That's a great tip. 1 versus 2, always gotta go with 2. Just remember that, dude. Going with 2.
Two's better. Yes. All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about in the Lower Coast region, inshore, offshore, and beyond. And I believe a congratulations is in order for you, Captain Chad Kinney.
Grand champion.
Grand champion.
Well, hopefully it keeps on going on till the Shallow Sport tournament. Maybe we can bring that luck moving forward.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This weekend is looking pretty good here for the weather-wise. I'm really kind of looking forward to getting a break. We've had some really high winds here lately, but this weekend is looking pretty good. And, of course, the following weekend, Shallow Sport, we'll be hitting that one up and see if we can replicate this past weekend. So talking about some inshore stuff, from Port Mansfield to South Padre Island, look for some color changes in the water. When talking about that, you're talking like some muddy water to where it gets a little bit more greenish. Fish those color changes. And also those fish are still holding in some deeper grass beds in the trout, like 3 to 5 foot of water. Redfish are also holding in the flats up really shallow. And sometimes in that muddy water, if you're in that, we have no grass beds or anything, when it's shallow, you get that muddy water, they're going to be holding in there also. And then some flounder action are still hitting around the guts and some of the drop-offs there. So, and talk about trout fishing first. It's really picking up on the Lower Coast here on the soft plastics, which I'm still using right now. It's hitting that saltwater assassin sea shad, looking really good. But if it's really early in the morning with the higher winds like that, start real early and throw some mirror lure top waters and walk the dog right over those potholes in the grass beds you got right there. There's been some really solid, healthy trout in that 17 to 23 inch range, which is the slot size we got right now. But we've been catching and releasing some in that 25 to 30 inch range. A buddy of mine had a couple 29s the other day that released, which is really solid to see that. They're showing some really, really good numbers, which are like that. And right now it's kind of transitioning from our shrimp boats that are operating. I can see that firsthand. The shrimp are starting to move. They're kind of gone. And so they're moving into like the piggies and the croakers. So if you're using lures, adjust your lure size of that. If you're using bait, the live shrimp pretty much not there, and then the piggies and the croaker will be showing up here pretty quick. Redfish, there's really still in good numbers, but with this little bit better weather coming in, which we haven't had here lately in the Lower Coast, hit the jetties. I think that'd be good out there. Carolina rigs with some fish bites, I would go with that. And fish those washouts and the eddies. And keep an eye on, main thing on this thing is a tidal movement. I see a whole bunch of guys that spend way too much time on slack tides, or if you're in there and you got there too late and you got a really fast incoming tide coming in, if it's ripping 2 knots and you guys are fishing, just move into the bay system, go somewhere else, because you're kind of spinning your wheels there. Best time is where you want to get out there is when you got a tidal change, where it just starts moving, those fish are going to start biting in, and that's where you want to be at. There are also some good numbers in the flats there for those redfish. So also, when you move to there, the saltwater assassin is what I'm using over there, but switch to the paddle tail with a really quick retrieve, and that'll help you out there. Flounder fishing, we've talked about a little bit, but not a whole bunch. The thing is, basically, it's like a really competition between you and the fish. It's a neat, really deal if you got the patience to do it. You got to really slow down your pace of fishing. You got there's few bites in between and few fish, but the best bet there again is tidal movement, and you got to find some guts. You got to find some tidal movement going, preferably. You can find a hard bottom there, which is really good.
cast repeatedly through those areas, cross and cross and cross. You think you might be in the same spot, you might have missed that flounder by a foot or better. Look for bait flipping or shimmering across the water. If you got a little shiner shimmering and breaking, I've even seen some flounder come out of the flats and jump after them. It's really, really good. So remember also, when you're retrieving that lure real slow through there, when you feel that thump, let it sit for a second, give them a little bit of line, stick them, and then go, slide them up in the bank, which I talked about, or definitely have a wading net or a buddy with you to help them, because those suckers will spit it right at the boat or on the bank. So we got a picture here. Lucky to have my wife there fishing. Got Erica, myself, and got Randy Pierce and Beavis, aka they're on the deal. We won the BDS tourney, which was 94 boats, so it's 2 redfish and a flounder.
Nice.
So
Nice, congrats.
we're gonna hopefully to replicate that in about 10 days or so, 14 days. So when we go to offshore, we're gonna go ahead. The sea conditions, like I said, haven't been that great. It's been really difficult to get out there. Sea temps, but are warming up, and the seas, in my opinion, are gonna really start calming down, which is gonna help the weed lines to form up, which help all the pelagics. It'll hold the bait. Everything follows through like everything else. Everything follows baits, what it all goes through. It's like a dinner table or a buffet. So there's been some blackfin out there, tuna, which is kind of early, which is good. It's good seeing those. It means there's plenty of bait out there. So if you can get out there, put a full spread, definitely run some islander lures, rig some valley food, and on your tackle, as far as we've been going with that 30 to 50 wide, if you want to, on the Penn Internationals. And there's some decent blackfin. We've got a picture of them out of South Padre Island, Ben Hill's boat there. We've got a picture of decent blackfin there.
Nice. All right, Chad, thank you so much. Look forward to being with you in a week or so, a couple of weeks, whatever it is. The shallow sport hotspots from the lower coast region are inshore with better winds, looks for better water clarity and better trout bites in 3 to 5 feet of water from Port Mansfield down to South Padre, guys. And then offshore, this weekend looks good for the weather conditions to try the lower coast jetties for redfish. And if the sea conditions look, man, you might want to head out to State Water Snapples.
All right, well, this is the tournament that Chad is talking about. Shallow Sport Boats is hosting their 21st annual Owners Fishing Tournament May 13th through the 14th in South Padre. This event has become known as the biggest and the best owners tournament on the Gulf Coast, with hundreds of teams competing for over $250,000 worth of prizes, including a brand new Shallow Sport boat, Suzuki motor, and McLean trailer package. For more information, scan the QR code on the screen or go to shallowsporttournament.com. Rick and I are going to be there fishing with Chad, so I hope he gives some of his good
I just
juju
can't
to
wait
us.
to see all the other anglers there.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Texas,
I can't wait.
the people are just the bomb.
Yes.
I love them.
Absolutely.
I love them. I'm going to move to Texas, maybe.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Crappie and bass is where it's at in the Upper Fresh region, and our guide Mike McFarland is on top of them. So Mike, let's get the weekend started.
What's going on, guys? It's awesome to be here as always. So let's start with the bass on Lake Fork. Water temperatures are ranging from 68 to 70 degrees in the main lake, with backwaters reaching 74s and 78. Water is generally stained in the backwaters with the recent flooding, but the main lake has visibility of about 1 to 2 foot. The spawning continues in the backwaters, but will be finishing up very soon. I expect the next moon to be the final round of spawning fish. Texas rig Cinco is working extremely slow. Are finding success, but really the best bite is in the main lake on wind-blown points and structure. The Carolina rig bait and 3/4 ounce football jigs in brim colors are truly the ticket to get the bigger bites. When you're searching for those really big bass on Lake Fork, always be sure to use the wind. Wind is your friend. On the calmer days, expect a little bit of topwater bite, find the active birds, and in these areas you're having the shad spawn. So you can also use some small underspins, paddle tail swim baits, 3/8 ounce willow leaf spinner baits in plain white and white chartreuse. Here's a couple of 9-pounders caught within 30 minutes apart last week from my best friend, Bass Lady Brooke.
Wow, she's on fire, man. She's made an appearance every week.
Yes.
Bass
Every
Lady
week
Brooke.
she catches them good. But guess what? You're going to like this one. Crappie fishing on Lake Fork with our former TIFR, Johnny Geist. Captain Johnny Geist says hello to everybody. He really's been busy this year catching bass and crappie, but he shares this report here. The shallow crappie are spawning on Lake Fork. It's been really windy, and it is winding down, but with the cooler weather this year, there's still some big crappie in less than 3 feet of water. Due to the high winds, Johnny's been targeting shallow crappie with the cork rig and minnows and jigs. He's been using his power poles. They're really getting to work out, and they're necessary to hold boat position.
When the wind allows, he will start fishing offshore in 10 to 20 feet of depths using the GARMIN live scope to locate them around brush piles and laydowns as they migrate back to the summer holes. Lake Fork really does continue to produce some of the best quality crappie all over the lake and supports a growing number of anglers that are having great success with forward-looking sonars. Here's a great tip from Johnny when you're keep you from re-rigging. When you get hung up with the crappie jigs and things, use 20-pound straight braid. Quickly snap your rod on slack line, and if you're using light wire hooks, it'll bend the hook straight out. It'll come unhung. Grab your pair of pliers, bend those hooks right back, and you're ready to go again. But give Johnny Geis a call if you want to catch them big crappie here on Fork. And here's a really cool picture of a happy family that recently fished with Johnny in spring.
Those are some big old slabs there, bub.
That's how Johnny does it.
All right, what else you got?
We love him. Moving on, guys. White bass hybrids, catfish on Tawakoni. Matt Cartwright. The lake is holding 2 feet low with maintained temperatures at 68. White bass still schooling early under the birds, shallow. Small paddle tail swim baits are your best bet. And then they return to the deeper water 18 to 20 feet later in the day. Try the 1 ounce slab spoons and live shad if you can catch the shad. With the big winds, man, Tawakoni gets real rough, so there's not a lot of offshore options lately. The hybrids have been hiding, and basically still the same thing. 12 to 22 feet are your best depths. Great catfishing still going on with cut shad in less than 3 feet of water, and the bass are on the spawn in the backwaters as well. I got a few more reports to tell you about some other lakes. Let's talk about Texoma and Ray Roberts. Guy Jason Kahn said range water temperature 62 to 70 on Texoma. Bass are still spawning in the marinas. Water is generally clear enough to see them and sheltered from the winds to sight fish. Texas rig creature baits, worms, weightless Cincos, they're all working well. Get out on the main lake when you can. The wind-blown points, big swim baits are still catching some of the bigger fish, just like here on Fork. Then Ray Roberts. Ray Roberts is still great, 2 feet above full pool, which makes for some really unique bass fishing. 65, 70 degrees. The bass are spawning in the north end. I've flipped them flooded brushes, the bushes and things. Anything like jigs, Texas rigs, and even frogs and buzzbaits are really working well. And then if I can squeeze this one in, Lake Athens, really the same thing has been going on. 68, 73, spinner baits, chatter baits, flukes, Cincos, they're your best bet. Frog bite continues at the edge of the grass in lily pads, and even flip the docks a little with finesse jigs and Texas rig worms. But all the fishing up here in the upper region is on fire.
I can't believe that you got that novel all done in 4.5 minutes. You did a great job. Thank you so much, bud. Keep up the great work. We're proud to have you. Say hello to Johnny for us, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Fresh region. Mike says that the crappie fishing on the world-famous Lake Fork is on fire. Week after week, this lake continues to produce full limits of giant Texas-sized crappie. Grab your bobbers, the crappie jigs, and some minnows, and you're in for a good time.
You know, last time I wore this shirt, I was fishing with Johnny.
Come
we
on.
We were catching big old crappie like you just saw on screen there. Oh, yeah. He's the best.
Say it ain't
and
so.
he loves his GARMIN live scope, man.
Yes, he does.
And it works.
And it does work.
Yeah. All right, so keep your sombreros on and get ready for the GARMIN Middle Coast region next. But first, Dave is shaking his maracas for some new products.
Maracas.
Not really.
Come on, do it.
Shake
do
your
it.
maracas.
Shake your
I'm not going to
maracas.
shake anything on TV.
Come on.
No,
do it
no,
for the
I'm not
sake of
gonna do
it.
it.
We need to give Dave a
All right.
margarita.
All right.
2 of them.
Maybe. We'll be back.
2.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Tin Cup Mountain Whiskey. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Miralure. Abu Garcia, Fish to Win. Ameritrail, load, launch, relax. Fenwick, feel everything. Diamond Fishing Products, our reputation is on the line. R&R Tackle, from our tackle box to yours. And StarTron, start, run, and store with StarTron.
Dave, we're here. It's time for new products at the bench, so
Yes.
let's just roll, bro.
Well, we're going to start off with that beautiful fly reel right there. It looks like a work of art rather than a reel to me. It's the Hardy Zane carbon fly reel. It's that's the 1200 series, I believe.
12,000.
12,000. I'm sorry. I was a journalism major, but 12,000, 1,200. That's why I'm poor. So anyway, the it's very nice. Very, very nice. So it's got 1-to-1 retrieve,
right,
like most fly reels, but it's got 10 pounds of drag, so it'll hold a tarpon or a big permit. You know, it's a big fly reel. It's got a big arbor, so it can take up a lot of line for that one little retrieve, for that 1-to-1 retrieve.
So what I've been doing, Dave, I've been putting the diamond hollow core,
right,
because I don't want it to burn up my finger instead of the gel spun. I'm using 60-pound hollow core, but I'm able to put 550 yards plus a 12-weight floating line. Yeah. If I want to do a shooting head for like tuna, I can bump that up to 650 because I'm only going to have a 50-foot shooting head. The cool part about this reel, Dave, is that if you want to switch from a right-hand retrieve to a left-hand retrieve, it's really simple. You just unscrew this. There's a simple flathead screw in there. Pull out the bearing, rotate the bearing 180 degrees, put it back together. I love these reels because of how simple they are to keep clean.
Wow,
you can rinse the reel and nothing is going to dilute your grease, which a lot of the reels in the marketplace.
It's a sealed drag.
That's a disaster.
Yeah, it's a sealed drag, and you know, because of all the, you know, they take out all the metal that's not necessary.
It's just
incredibly light.
Yeah.
So you can hold that in your hand all day, which is a lot of times what you'll do. You'll be standing up there holding that thing all day. And so it makes it really good and light for your casting. And
what else you got from Hardy?
Well, this is
brand new.
Yes, this is their brand new fly rod here. This is the Hardy Zane Pro rod, 11 weight. You know, again, that's a tarpon rod. It's got Cerakoil guides with ceramic titanium inside, so you know they can't break.
They don't break.
They can't break.
This is a one-piece.
Right. It comes in a four-piece one as well. Really top end 4A cork on there. It's a high performance saltwater, you know, high modulus carbon fiber, less diameter in it. You know, you notice a lot of 12 weights or 11 weights would be a lot thicker.
Yes.
Well, they take a lot of the diameter out, so it, you know, moves through the air a lot easier as well.
And let me tell you what little bit I know about fly fishing. I can tell you that a 4-piece rod versus a 1-piece rod. The 1-piece rod, you're going to be able to feel when the rod loads a lot easier. Obviously not convenient for traveling.
Right.
But if you have the ability to drive to wherever you're fishing, or like say you live in the Florida Keys, or you live in Florida and you're fly fishing in the Keys for tarpon, this is the perfect rod. I love 1-piece rods for a million different reasons. I don't like how a 4-piece rod, it dampers the sensitivity in the cast. And that's just my own personal preference. It doesn't mean that it's wrong or right. It's just my own opinion.
It's you know, physics as well. You know? You got all those ferrules in there.
Where do we go to buy either one of these?
Yeah, Hardy's.com.
Hardy.com. Yeah. Here we go.
Next, we got the Taco Marine, the new Blackout Series Grand Slam mount for 1.5 ounce riggers, 1.5 inch outriggers. I'm sorry.
Pass that over here, Dave.
You can manipulate it.
I can manipulate while you're talking.
It's a little heavy. What's really cool about this, the Blackout Series, is they got this really nice hard black anodized finish on them now up top. And if you fish on a if you fish on an offshore boat, that T-top, everything up at top doesn't really get as good a cleaning as necessary. And you know, with this black anodized coating, everything stays corrosion free. You know, you just give it a good rinse and you're good.
And matched up with the Taco
right.
telescopic
These are the
poles?
deluxe aluminum 8 to 18. They go from 8 feet to 18 feet. So you know, really a good stretch there. And these are heavy tubes, a lot heavier than they used to be. Got these wonderful 360-degree halyard holders there, all ball bearings. These things are just really, really sweet. They have really all the tabs aligned so that when you extend it out, it's really easy to lock in place.
Right.
And you put these on top of a little center console boat, and you control anything. You control live baits from up there if you want to, because these things are heavy. Yeah. These are really thick-walled and really great for the fellows on the center consoles, especially teamed up with that little bugger.
And the good part is that you can wind them up and you're coming into the boat ramp and put them down.
All stainless steel, really heavy duty stuff.
You did. You did good.
No, I'm stuttering a lot.
That's all right. Maybe you should try one of these margaritas.
Maybe.
Trying to get me for that maracas commenting?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
you threw me off.
Sorry. All right, the GARMIN Middle Coast region waters are looking pretty promising for this weekend's fiesta. So let's get Captain Bink Grimes on the line to talk redfish and trout.
Hey, our tides finally swelled this week. It's given us a lot more real estate to fish. That new water's pushed loads of shrimps and shad and mullet to the shoreline, and those trout have followed them. Drifting East Bay has been good on live shrimp under a popping cork. Shelling about 5 foot of water has produced trout to 7 pounds. The same is held true for trout on the shorelines for waders throwing topwaters. Winds have gusted to 25 knots or better this week, but our water clarity on the shoreline has stayed pretty clean. The only way to consistently catch these trouts along the middle coast this time of year is wading, and so that's what we're doing a whole lot of. And but it looks like in the forecast we're going to get a little bit calmer winds in May. Water temps have reached 75 degrees in the bays. West Matagorda Bays produce trout on Bass Assassins and topwaters. Incoming tide's been good around daylight. It's peaked around lunch. That's perfect for wading the flats early. And then at Freeport, those higher tides have pushed trout to the reefs in Christmas and Bastrop Bays. Live shrimp work best off the edge of the shell. The Surfside beachfront's been good when the weather allows. Jetty anglers, they're starting to find those trout coming tight to those rocks. Like I said, the magic number, we're right there at 75 degrees, and those trout are hanging around the jetties and on the beach. In Rockport, wading protected shorelines with topwaters and soft plastic have produced good fish. Shrimp under popping cork has produced limits around reefs and shell bottoms. Waders working around Allen's Bight with small topwaters have scored good numbers of trout. Then in Port O'Connor, anglers are beginning to see those trout show up at the jetty there as well. Best on shrimp and mullet, and their waders are tossing topwaters in the back lakes around Pringle and Conti and Showwater on small topwaters like the Berkeley Jaywalkers. Redfish has been good in Bastrop Bay on live shad. Some reds have hit small topwaters and Bass Assassins. Water clarity's been stained, but what's happening with those topwaters, those redfish are finding that noisy plug in off-colored water. Got Michael Gubecka, he's been finding good redfish and stiff winds on the reef in the intercoastal around East Bay. He's been using live shrimp on mid-coast corks. Got Michael Roth, he's been working mud flats on the incoming tide and taking nice reds. And Chris Caldwell, he's been working the mud flats off the intercoastal for big reds. The swollen tides, like I said, has been a player for all the back lakes in Matagorda, like Oyster Lake, Crab Lake, and Lake Austin. Best baits have been live shrimp under a popping cork. The back lakes in Port O'Connor are holding good numbers of redfish. The Port O'Connor and Port Aransas jetty is hot as well on shrimp and crabs. We hadn't had a whole lot of rain. Our salinity levels are high, so a lot of these redfish are going way up the river, and because that salt's going way up the river right now. We hadn't had rain in probably 3 months, and it's running 35 to 36 parts per thousand in some areas. There's a photo there. Redfish was found in about a foot of water in Oyster Lake on the incoming tide. It's perfect right now this time of year in Oyster Lake with those high tides. Those reds get right on top of the reef. Offshore, more boats are venturing offshore. It's been a hit or miss time of the year because we've had such tough winds, but that magical 75-degree mark has been good for bringing those fish closer to the beach. We're about a month away from our federal red snapper season, which is going to run start June 1st and run through August the 18th. The wade hasn't stopped a lot of anglers on these calm days for going out and finding those red snapper around Freeport and Matagorda inside 9 nautical miles, which is our state waters. Still lots of sharks and bull redfish about 2 miles off the beach. There's not a whole lot of sargassum showing up yet, but a few kingfish have been caught. So we're kind of looking forward to that. We got a few extra days of red snapper season this year, it looks like, so everybody's kind of gearing up for that. But that's another good week out of the GARMIN Middle Coast region, and we ask you to keep practicing good judgment for our fisheries. And we want to say Happy Mother's Day out there to all the ladies, especially my mom Brenda and my wife Shelly, and to you too, Brie.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank
you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Middle Coast region. Bink says the reef and Christmas Bay are good for trout on live shrimp. The waders have tossed Berkeley J walkers for trout on the edges of the reef, and the redfish are on the mud flats in and about a foot of water on shrimps.
Well, we are just celebrating over here at the
Yeah,
workbench.
man.
It is Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
So let's just
Come
pour
on.
some
Everybody's got to have a little.
Jose Cuervo margarita.
We got the Jose Cuervo in the house. There's one for you, Dave.
I'll have some of
Here's
those.
Dave,
one
you're
for,
so festive. I'm proud
for
of you.
Mama.
Yeah. Mama
Very
gets
colorful.
one.
I done made this up during the commercial break.
Just whipped it on up.
That's
I
pretty
did.
good, actually.
Okay, did you give me this because it's chartreuse
That's
like my
really
shirt?
good.
You can't even see it. It's blending.
How about
I'm
that?
blending. Well, cheers.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Happy Mother's Day,
Thank
Bree.
you. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy Mother's Day
Happy
to
Mother's
everybody
Day to
out
all the
there.
mamas out there.
Happy
Yes.
birthday to Molly Moo.
Oh, Molly. How old is
Daughter.
Molly, Dave?
16 years old.
16.
Oh, that's a scary age. I'll be there one
I think
day.
I need that whole bottle of this.
Yeah, you will. We'll send you a care package for Mother's Day. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Go
We'll
catch
see you
those
guys.
fish.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
We're just going to keep on.